Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're located, and welcome to our webinar Wednesday. My name is Stephen Phelps, and I am the marketing manager here at Acumen. And for those of you who are new to our webinar series, Acumen likes to host bi-weekly webinars that strengthens your knowledge on Sage products, whether it's going over third-party add-ons, providing tips and tricks, or showcasing the latest content and features. Today, we brought in our very own Nick Nabozny to show you the latest tips and tricks for Sage 300. But before he begins, please note that this webinar is in listen-only mode. And if you have any questions, then please use the chat option and we'll answer near the end of the presentation. This webinar should last around 1 hour long. So with that said, I will now pass it on to Nick.
Thanks, Stephen. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, and welcome everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, as Stephen said. Now that we got introductions out of the way, let's get right into the presentation. So as Stephen mentioned, we're going to cover some tips and tricks for your Sage 300 system. Now, some of this is a bit of a repeat. This is a pretty popular class that we've taught over the years, and we like to repeat it kind of every year or so because we have new clients that are brand new to Sage 300, and we also have clients that have been longtime users but may have some new users. And then also I like to add some of the new features to the end of it, so there should be something new for everyone, hopefully. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the Acumen tools, things that our team has built to enhance the functionality and really make data entry easier for you and for your team. Now, the goals and objectives for today are to really give you some, take-home things that you can actually do today or tomorrow that will kind of make you more efficient with Sage 300, right? Will help you hopefully save time, hopefully speed up data entry, show you some kind of maybe buried tricks that you might not be aware of, things that we may have covered during training, things that you may not have ever seen before, because training was a bit overwhelming when you went through it the first time, which I certainly understand. And then, as I said, we'll review some of these tools or kind of add-ons that our Acumen team has built to help with the Sage 300 kind of data entry process. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And I'm going to start with multi-company functionality. And I'm going to jump back and forth between my PowerPoint and Sage 300 to kind of actually show you things. Now, I'm going to go quickly today. This will be recorded and put out on the Acumen YouTube channel, just like all of our other webinars. So you'll be able to refer back to this. But if you have any questions or anything that you didn't quite catch, you need help on, please feel free to reach out to your account manager, reach out to the support team, contact Stephen or myself, and we'd be more than happy to, review with you, point you in the right direction and get you going. But I want to go quickly so we can cover as many of these tips and tricks as possible in our kind of time slot. So multi-company functionality. What I mean by that is when you have a lot of entities, sometimes it can get confusing to deal with, each of them and know which one I'm in, which one I have access to, how many I have open at the same time. So a couple of different ways we can handle that. We can customize the company drop-down list, and we can change colors of each of the companies. So to do that and show you that, let's jump over to Sage 300 here. And what I mean by customize the company drop-down here is you can see when you log in, right? You've all logged into Sage 300 before. You have a drop-down here with a company name or a list of company names. Well, there's a setting in the a4w.ini file that allows you to change the control of this, where you see, I cannot see both companies until I put my password in, and now I can see that I have two databases in here. Whereas my user, Nick, only has access to one of them. So for clients that have, we have clients with 200, 300, 400 different companies in there, and certain groups of users only need access to a few of them. So this can make this much easier for logging in, for finding what you want. Again, that's the setting in the A4W.ini file here called user authenticated list of companies. And again, happy to help you. Reach out to support if you need help finding that or changing that setting. So Now that we're logged into the company and I can see the ones I have access to, and the way that works, by the way, is if I have security rights to a company, it will show in the drop-down list. Any security, it will show. No security, it will not show. Okay. And now that I'm logged in, I like to set the colors of the boxes of each of the companies. So if we go to chart of accounts, you can see it's blue, just like the top here. So it gives me the company ID, Sample Company Inc. version 6.8. And in my case here, might be ABC Co. or something like that in your case. But I like to set those colors, and we can do that in database setup. You have to have the admin password to do this. And you can pick the individual company and select edit and select a particular color, or let the system assign the colors automatically. So this is something, I'll say, set your test database in red or something like that. So it's very easy to see. Set, individual types of companies a certain color. So, if you're in the distribution company or the hospitality company or the insurance company or the management company, whatever that happens to be. So little thing, but it really can help you when you have a whole bunch of different companies open at the same time. Because remember, that only takes up one user. You can open as many as you need as long as you're on the same machine. Next, we're going to talk about some data entry shortcuts. And these are things we've learned, over the years where, we try to get you away from using the mouse, right? The mouse is fairly slow. The mouse is not efficient. And if you can use your keyboard and your tab sequences and your keystrokes to move through the screens, it can be much, much more efficient. Sometimes, we certainly just grab the mouse and point and click, perfectly okay. But again, if you're doing heavy data entry, some of these might help you get through it a little bit quicker. So we're going to talk about the Alt key plus the underlined letter. We're going to talk about the plus key in a numeric field. We're going to look at the tab, to move forward, which I'm sure everyone's using, but also look at Shift tab to move backwards and Control tab to scroll through tabs on individual screens. We're going to review what the space bar can do for you. And then the F keys, the function keys, F1, 5, 7, and 9, what they do on individual screens and how they help you navigate. So let's go ahead and jump over to Sage and we'll review that list again. So first is the Alt and underline letter. So if I'm in, say, accounts payable, and I'm going to work with an invoice entry here, and I go ahead and create a new batch, and I select my vendor and pull them up. Now, if I hit the Alt key here, and sometimes it's hard to see because it's kind of small on a webinar, but it turns on underlines under certain letters on the menus, the tabs, the buttons on each of the different components of my screen. And what I can do then is say, okay, Alt A is to add, Alt F would take me to the file menu. Alt C would close the screen. So I can move around the screen pretty quickly. I can jump tab to tab. I can go over to, Alt O to go to the totals and come over there. So a quick way to navigate through the screens. Again, remember, not touching the mouse. And I can always pick up the mouse and move wherever I need to do, of course. But again, just trying to make that as efficient as possible. Whenever I'm in any numeric field, I have the ability to use the plus key to launch the calculator. And I can do any kind of, calculation that I need to. And then look, Alt P, Alt H, or Alt B, Alt P will go ahead and put that back into the field for me. So I don't have to remember it and type it quickly or copy it and try to paste it. I can do Alt P and just paste it back in. There we are, combining our first two tricks together and using them in the same screen. Now, talked about tabbing through the screens, right? You can tab through everything in every screen in Sage 300, but I'm sure most of you know that as you're working through the system on a daily basis, but Shift tab will also move you backwards through that same tab sequence. We're going to talk a little bit later about hiding some fields to perhaps speed up that tab sequence. So that'll be coming up in a few minutes. And then Control tab, what that will do is it will take me through the individual tabs here. So another way to kind of quickly go through to different tabs or different screens inside of one of the components or one of the screens in Sage 300. So inside the AP invoice entry screen. Okay, spacebar. My favorite place to kind of cover what the spacebar does is in the AP payment batch list. We'll start a new batch here. The spacebar is going to allow me to turn things on and off. So yes, no things, on, off things. Let's pick a vendor that's not on hold here. And we'll say go. So here, where I have lots of yes or no's, right? I can always, of course, double click and apply this, right? But I can also use the spacebar and the arrow key to quickly go through this and turn things, toggle things on or off. You know, as I'm tabbing through, right, I can tab a spacebar on a checkbox, which will do a on or off, a yes or no. Bank rec is another huge one where you can very quickly go into the reconciled column and use the spacebar to put the X in and quickly move through, you know, arrow keys down, X down, spacebar, and quickly clear things. Okay. Now, the function keys are a big one because that's going to allow us to launch the help screens, the finder screens, the refresh, like the go button, you know, another way to hit the go button. So let's talk about that. And F1 is context sensitive help. And sorry, it opened on my other monitor here. So if I open a screen, if I have a question in Sage 300 and I open a screen, say AP payment entry, right? And then I hit F1, it's going to take me to the help section and immediately open the screen that I was on, or the section about the screen I was on. So it's going to tell me all about the AP entry screen, all the fields, all the information, what about it, what's related to it, you know, what pop-up screens are underneath it. So they've done a really nice job, you know, over the years, adding to this context sensitive help. You can always search in here if you need to, if that's not where you want it to be, but it does a really nice job of taking you right to where you are, you know, into the related section. One thing I do want to mention while we have this open here is my favorite section in the context sensitive help is this fields and controls section here. And this is going to be a little blurb about every single field, checkbox, or value on that particular screen and what should go in there, what type of field it is, what it's looking for, and you know, some suggestions of what might go there. So, you know, that's really, really granular, but they did a nice job of kind of telling you what each field is all about if you have any questions. Now, the finder, of course, I'm sure all of you are kind of clicking on the magnifying glass here to launch the finder, but just know that the F5 key will also launch that same exact screen. Remember, finders are customizable for you. And if I change it, it doesn't change any other user in the Sage 300 environment. It just changes it for me. And if I log in on any machine, as long as I log in as Nick, it's going to look the way I left it. So that is a user-specific change. And F5 will launch that finder screen. F7 is the same as clicking on the go button. So to do AP payment entry, right, I have to select my vendor, and then I always have to click the go button here. Well, I can do F7 and pull up that same thing. It kind of refreshes the screen, right? Bank rec's another one. There's a few different places where that's, you know, really helpful. And certainly in some of the third-party add-on modules as well, that can be pretty commonly used. Again, these are all things you can do with the mouse, but just you know, trying to get you to be more efficient, especially if you're a heavy data entry type user. And then lastly, the F9 key is what we call the zoom key. And I'm going to jump over actually to order entry to talk about that, because that's a really good spot where if I pull open an order, okay, I have a data entry grid here, right, where I have a nice long scroll bar. in Sage 300. So there are many fields related to a single line of one order. Well, the F9 key is what we call the zoom key. So that takes me to a single pop-out screen with every field that's related to that particular one row. And I can still work here. You know, you see the blue line as I move to row 2, it moved there. I can add a new line. Now I'm down at 3 and I can work right from here. So sometimes as people are getting used to working with, you know, these long scroll bars, we say, well, just pop open the zoom key, you know, use F9, and you can see every field there. Make sure you have it filled out the way that you want. Make sure the back orders are good or the quantity shipped is what you were expecting. Okay, so that's you know, those are the function keys and how to use them and really when to use them. They are really good at kind of helping you navigate, again, leaving the mouse behind. And then the last thing I had as a data entry shortcut is a kind of a strange one, but it's a way to copy like data when I'm adding something new to the system. So if I was adding a new general ledger account, or perhaps a new inventory item or a new vendor or something like that, what I like to do is, let's say here I have a particular revenue account. So we'll go down to account number contains 4,000 here, and we'll select this. And I'm going to make, you know, account 4001. So what I'll do is I will pull open an account that is similar to that. And if I was making an item, I would do the same for an item or a customer or a vendor, right? And I can just delete the indexed field and change it. And you can see, because I've now changed it to an indexed field value that is brand new, my save button has changed to add. So Sage knows that I'm adding something new here, but all of my other settings have stayed for me. So the structure code, the account group, the status, all of that stayed for me. You know, not everything will stay. For inventory items, you still have to go set the unit of measure, and there's a few things, but honestly, lots of things will actually stay. So it does cut down on the number of pieces of data that you have to fill in for a brand new transaction, a brand new item, excuse me, a brand new GL account, a brand new vendor. When I click the plus to clear out the screen, you can see all of that definitely goes away. So again, not something you have to do, but something that can save time, you know, when you're doing it over and over and over again in some cases. Okay, let's talk about user interface customization next. I said we were going to talk about hiding fields, right, for faster data entry, and also hiding fields for security, and hiding buttons, perhaps, such as the delete button, or maybe an add button or something like that for certain users. Let's go take a look and show how that works. So in the system, my favorite example of this here is under AP vendors. We had a client that wanted to start with every single vendor on hold. So what we did is we said, okay, no problem. We created a trigger to put every vendor on hold. And then we went to File, Customize here, right in the vendor screen, you know, no coding or anything. This is all part of the core application. We said, okay, let's create a profile. We called it accounts payable. You can have as many profiles as you need because you're going to assign users to the individual profiles. And then what we did is we scrolled through this list here, which is all of the fields, tabs, buttons, and values on the screen behind it. And we found the on hold. And the hardest thing to do is do it when everyone's watching you. And we check the box or uncheck the box to take it off the screen. So you can see it actually gets removed from the screen. And we said, okay. And then we assigned users to the AP UI profile, which you'll see up in administrative services. So you can have some users, right, that have full access to it where they can see the on hold button. And I can have another user who has the exact same rights to an AP vendor, but because they're assigned a UI profile, they may not see a particular button. So we've helped clients, you know, hide a field where like address 4, if you don't use it, but you store a note in there or something that not everyone needs to see, hide something like that. We've had people take fields off the screen to make tabbing through faster, because if the field's not there, the tab sequence will skip it. We've also had people take off things like the delete button, right? I want to give someone the ability to change, modify a vendor, but maybe not ever delete one. So I take the delete button right off the screen. So that's all what we call UI, or user interface profile maintenance, or profile customization. And that will work with any of the Sage 300 forms or the screens under File, Customize. Next, we'll talk about scheduling. And this is a small one, but it can be very powerful when used the right way. So scheduling is part of the Common Services application or module. And honestly, I don't think I see people using this enough. So if we go into scheduling here, we go into schedules, I can create a schedule. And I'm sure a lot of you have done this. If you have any recurring payables, receivables, journal entries, anything that you've got recurring, it's going to use these schedules, right? But what I really want to point out is that there's a reminder section here where I can say, okay, I would like this to remind a specific user or all users, and we'll say a specific user. And I want that to remind me on, 4 days in advance of the schedule start date, which we'll say is, we'll go to today, and we'll back this up to maybe November 1st. And now my schedule is going to be daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, whatever that happens to be. And I can save that and create that schedule. Now I assign that to, recurring payable, recurring billing, recurring journal entries, whatever I assign that to. But what happens is when I set that reminder, it's going to actually pop up when I log into the system, when it's 4 days in advance, in this case, of a scheduled start date. And it's going to remind me that it's time to process a certain monthly schedule. And then all I have to do is click process, and it's going to do that data entry for me. I don't have to remember to go run it. I don't have to, run a report to tell me, oh, it's time to run that, that particular schedule, or go looking for what I forgot to process. It's going to pop up automatically and tell me to run that just by clicking the process button. Okay. And there's no limit to schedules, right? So you could have a monthly Nick, a monthly Steven, as many different schedules as you need, and assign them to individual types of transactions to remind different users of different things. Next, we're going to talk about creating multiple copies of icons. This is a popular one. And every time I've shown someone this that doesn't know it, I get a wow. So let's go ahead and take a look at what I mean. I'm sure a few of you on the call have been working in Sage, maybe doing an order, or in the middle of a purchase order, or working with AP, AP entry or something like that. And you get a call, or someone walks in and needs you to look up something else, or, and you kind of have to pause or stop, right? And say, hang on, let me remember where I left off. Let's say this has 100 different lines on this order. I could post it and come back, but maybe I just wanted to leave it, right? So the way this works is, out of the box, if I double click on order entry, right, it's going to bring me to the screen that I have open. So I double click again, it's just going to pop open that same screen for me. If I go into properties, oops, I had it on already from my last demo. So if I turn that off, what's going to happen is it's just going to open up the one I have already open. If I say properties, right click on order entry, go to properties, and start multiple copies, what happens is I can pull up multiple copies of the same window. So now I have order 70 and order 69 open, and I can compare the two. So I could leave this one where it is as I'm working on the next one or something like that, or as I'm answering questions. So that you can do that in lots of different places. It fits in location items, it fits in order entry, and certainly purchase orders whenever you're doing data entry. So that can be really powerful in launching another instance of the same exact icon, same exact screen. Okay, next we're going to talk about changing or modifying the Sage 300 desktop a little bit. If I can add things, if I can have shortcuts to perhaps other programs or web pages or custom folders so that I make it more personalized to me, rename some of the icons, it'll be easier for me to use, right? It'll be more familiar, more comfortable. I can stay in Sage 300 longer. I don't have to jump around to other programs. So let's take a look and I'll show you what I mean by that. So in Sage 300, I have the ability to create new folders, right? So I'm going to just come up to the top here. And wherever I see white space in the system, I can create a new folder. So it could be under accounts payable. It might be under AP transactions. It might be under AP vendors, right? I'm going to just create it up at the top here. And I'm going to right click in the white space and say new folder. Now this is always going to alphabetize these for me. So I want this to be called Nick, but I'm going to do ... Nick. So it puts it up at the top alphabetically. Now, if I am creating this for all users, I can tick this box, and then any user that has the rights to this particular company will actually see this same folder, okay? Or same shortcut. The same thing applies to adding a new report, adding a new macro, or a new button for a program. Now, just be careful, because if all users is ticked, it does mean that all users will see it. You cannot control it by security. And it also means if any user deletes it, moves it, drags it around, changes the name, it changes for all users, okay? So it is truly all users. So I'm gonna say Nick, and I'll say save. And now I have a new folder up here where I can drag and drop things. I might be in charge of, doing vendor transactions or getting the invoices in. So I want to put my invoice batch in there. So I'm just going to drag it over there. And I also match this to my purchase orders. So I'll drag over purchase order entry. And then lastly, I'm in charge of looking up vendor activity when they call. So I'm going to drag that in as well. So now I could come in and click on my Nick folder every morning, and I can see, okay, well, this is the 3 or 4 or 6 things that I need to see. And I can do more, if I want to go deeper and I want to have new folders, subfolders, Nick's AP, Nick's AR, Nick's OE, whatever that happens to be. I can also put shortcuts to macros. Maybe Acumen has written a macro for you and you want to create a shortcut to it, right? So I can right click and do new macro, give it a title, and then browse to that macro file. And of course, we can help you do that and find that. I'm going to show you an example of a way to launch other programs right from Sage 300, okay? And so one way to find out the path to something is underneath view up at the top here, go to the detail section. So view is up here, details. And whenever it's a custom icon, it's going to give you the path. So if one of your other users has that shortcut and you need it, you can go to view details. And then when you go to that browse, you can browse to that same exact path, or they can copy and paste it and email it to you if you wanted to, and you can paste it right in. Okay, so view details. And then just to kind of show you some other examples here, I took one of our Acumen GL import tools here, and I created a shortcut to it. So it's going to launch an Excel file. Sorry, it launched on my other monitor, but it's going to launch Excel right from in Sage and open up the very specific file that I wanted it to open. I may also open a website, maybe one of our suppliers wants us to, go on this portal all the time, or maybe we're looking up currencies on oanda.com, and I want to launch Oanda and get right into the currency converter or something like that. So they don't have to be Sage shortcuts. They can be shortcuts to, other programs, as long as I know where to find them. And again, view, details, we can help you get those types of things set up. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to support, and we'll help you get that created. Now you can rename certain icons, right? So in a NIC folder here, or in a custom folder, maybe I want to right click and go to properties and say enter invoices is what I like to call that. Say okay. And so I've renamed that to enter invoices here. Or perhaps I want to go back to properties and change the icon to something a little bit different. I like to think of entering AP invoices as that right there, invoices going in. So I've changed my icon to that. Now I can also, if I've messed it up, I can delete it and remove it from my custom folder. I can never do that for the canned icons, right? I can't delete them or move them or get rid of them. I can, however, rename the canned icons. Anytime I make a change like this, it's just like the Finder that we talked about, and it's going to be for my login. So it will not change anyone else in Sage, only my login. And lastly, if I create a folder up here at the top level, has to be up at the top, and I call it Startup, STARTUP, all one word like that. Anything that I copy into that folder, into the startup folder. So let's say I want to have, maybe I'm in charge of collections and I'd like to have the aged trial balance run every single time I log in to Sage 300. Well, I can put that into a startup folder. And what's going to happen is, as soon as I log into the system and say, okay, any of the icons in startup are going to launch automatically without me having to click them. Okay, so I've seen people put, the shortcut to Outlook in there. I've seen people put shortcut to certain websites, certain reports that you want to run on a daily basis. Certainly Acumen Tools, if you're doing lots of data entry imports and you use Acumen Tools all day long, that's another popular one, because again, it's just going to open it for you and be sitting there ready to go as soon as you log in. Okay, next is something called visual process flows. And this really allows me to further, again, customize the end user experience. And, Sage kind of came out with these 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that now, but we don't see enough clients taking advantage of these and using these. So let's kind of talk about that, right? So underneath, everything here, because it's alphabetical, is visual process flows. And if you don't see them, I'll show you a little bit of tips and tricks on how to find that too, but you have to make sure that they're installed, make sure that you have security rights to them. But visual process flows are kind of a way to, I call it, flatten out a particular module, right? So under AP, we have setup, we have setup reports, we have transaction or the data entry areas, we have static data like vendors and 1099s, right? Well, maybe I need access to some or parts of that. So I could make a visual process flow to kind of flatten it out into one screen. And we've even gone so far as to drag this bar over for certain users and lock down their ability to change their desktop. So they log into a nice clean screen where I say, okay, I want to enter data vendor invoices. I can click on that button and it's going to open my invoice entry screen. Maybe have access to all the reports in AP because security gives me all of them, but maybe I only want to create buttons for 2 of them for a particular user. Okay. So you can, of course, lots of these will come out of the box. Every module, including third parties, do offer visual process flows. If I right click on one though, I can go open the editor And I can edit these. I can change them, make new buttons. I just did a very, very simple one here where I added the Acumen logo in, and I added a button to launch a particular bank withdrawals report that I might want to have access to. So you can edit these. If I right click and go to edit and I do a save as, okay, I can save it in that folder, and I can never really break it. Okay, I can't break the canned one. So no harm in really kind of giving that a try, taking a look, and certainly reach out if you have questions, and we're happy to help you, get going or work with those to modify them. Now, if you don't see one, right, if I create a new one, I may not see it, or I certainly will not see it right away. So I can come back up to administrative services and assign visual process flows. And so for a particular user, if something's off, right, I need to make sure that the box is checked. So I created that AP NIC, and I could see it because I came over and ticked the box here and saved it so that I could see it as user admin. Okay, Finder options. We looked at the Finder a little bit earlier, but I'm sure everyone here on the call has used the Finder probably 50 times today, but you may or may not be aware that there are some options and changes that you can do in the Finder to make it more efficient. So let's say I'm back at my vendor screen and I launch my Finder, or I hit F5, right? And I say, okay, well, I want to very quickly see the vendor number. I want to make it pop out. Well, what I did to do that is I go up to the top and I went to settings and color. And I selected a particular field. So any of the fields that I have turned on, I can select, and then I can change the text color and or the background color. So something small, but a way to kind of pop information out or make it stand out. Now, I could also go to settings and columns, and here are all of the fields that I have stored about a particular vendor, including optional fields. So if I don't see something in my Finder that I would like to search by, perhaps an account number, an accounts payable contact, we created a discount level field, a business registration number, any optional field, right, or certainly any canned field in Sage 300, I can click on include and move it over to the selected side. And what that's going to do for me is add all of those fields over here: account number, accounts payable contact, discount level, and business registration number. I can move them up and down, right? So I can go to columns and I'd say, okay, well, I would like business registration to be up over here after a temporary vendor, and move it over. I can always click on it and drag it, right? So I can drag and drop things, of course, and flip things. I can click on one and drag it closed if I want to, if I don't need to see it. I could also right click on one and select hide on hold or not. Okay. Again, I'm changing this for the user admin. I'm logged in as admin or Nick, right? It's not going to change it for anyone else in the system. So I'm not breaking anything. I can see it and leave it the way I like to, and I will not affect any other users in the system. Now, I can also go and change the key or the search, the index search for this particular Finder. This is really only helpful, I think, if you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of records, right? But I could say, vendor number, that's how I like it to be sorted. Perhaps you use the vendor short name a lot and you'd like it to be sorted that way, which is going to be more alphabetical than by vendor number, right? So, or perhaps you want to sort it by group code or something like that, so that you can see, a certain group or a certain type of vendors a little bit quicker. It's always going to search by everything, but it's just how fast it searches. What does it use as the index to make that search? And you can see when I have 20 vendors, it doesn't really matter. I can see the whole thing, but we've got clients with 3, 4, 500,000 inventory items, right? 20,000 customers, 30,000 customers, where that can save, 5, 10 seconds every single time you launch the Finder. And, that can add up throughout the day. Now, lastly, we want to talk about the find by here, right? I'm sure everyone has said, okay, well, I'm going to look for vendor. I want to search for vendor name that contains or starts with a particular filter here. So I'm going to say find something that contains supplies, and I get Sentry, Grant Office, and Delco because they all have supplies in them, right? So that's great. But let's go back and kind of clear that now and say, okay, how can I compound that, right? Well, let's say I want to work with vendors in California. Those are the vendors I work with. I don't work with the ones in Florida, Colorado, Washington, Alaska. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and click on this set criteria button here. And I'm actually going to clear out my old criteria, save that. And I'm going to say, okay, I would like to take the state and province and add that. And I'm going to double click in here and say equals CA. And I'm going to save that and click OK. And you're going to see it has now filtered my finder for the California vendors, and only the California vendors, right? So I don't have to do that now and say, okay, well, let me search for supplies for ones that contain California, because that's already done and saved for me. That's going to remember that every time I open this particular screen. And now I can do searches. So I've had clients put in state. We've seen, status equals active or inactive. Maybe I want to hide the inactive ones. I want to leave them out there, but I don't need to see them every single time I launch the Finder. So just a little thing, but again, making searches faster, giving you the ability to find data a little bit quicker. Next is printing reports. Just a few tips really when I use some of the canned reports, saving some of the filters and print destinations, exporting to Excel, and then kind of changing and saving the print destination. So let's take a look. So when I run a particular report, let's say I want to run the aged payables report, right? And here, I'm going to go ahead and print this report to screen just the way it is. And I'm going to go and look through it and kind of pick out my vendors, right? I can see all the vendors. I get everything here. Some of you may not know, if you drill down far enough on the left-hand side here, you can quickly jump through, because whatever the index value is, in this case, it's vendor number, it's grouped by that, right? I can click through and very quickly jump to a particular place in the report. But what I want to show you is if you go here, and let's say, again, I want to look for vendors in a particular group, or I deal with the inventory accessories vendors or the miscellaneous vendors. I'll say ASC to ASC, and we'll print. Okay. I can, of course, come in and set that every single time. But what I can also do is say, okay, I want to go to settings and save those settings as defaults. And next time I come in, I can open that up and it's going to be there saved for me. So I can just make any changes like the date or anything else that I want to see and click print. So we've had clients do that where say, okay, I want to right click and copy that and right click and paste. Remember from before, we can right click and go to properties and rename this ASC and say, okay, so now I have an aged payables ASC where I will go in and set the vendor group to ASC to ASC, save those settings as defaults and print. And I did the same for the inventory group, so I have another kind of quick and dirty custom report. You can do that with almost every report in the system. And, you can make as many copies as you want. I can't hurt the original. So I can save settings, try things, create them, and save them for my user. And again, not changing anyone else's experience in the system. Next thing I want to talk about is exporting to Excel. I'm sure a lot of you on the call do that or need to do that or would like to do that. Just a little tip here. When I export, because these are crystal reports out of the box, right? It's going to export all the header information, page numbers, footers, all that kind of information, right? So I'll go over to export up here, and I'm going to say, do I want to export to PDF or CSV or Excel, right? And I can say Excel data only, which is one of the choices there. And then rather than go to the disk file, which is saving it and then having to launch Excel and open it up, I'm going to say, go ahead and launch the application and do data only. I'll say, okay, to accept the default settings there. And it's going to open Excel for me and dump out my report with none of the header information, none of the pages, none of the footers, none of the extra detail. Okay. It may not be perfect because Crystal is made to be a pretty report. It's not necessarily made as the best exporting tool, but you can see that's much better than all the headers, commas, page numbers, all that junk is gone out of there. So you can see it's a little bit easier to work with. So remember, details only as an option when you're exporting to Excel. Next is my print destination, right? So I can go up to the top and go to File, Print Destination up here. I can also double click on the little icon down here on the very bottom right, and I can see I can set that to printer, preview, email if I want to. And if I have it on email, do I want to print to a PDF or a rich text format right away? And so I can email something just right away by changing my print destination to email and printing the report. It'll pop open a new email and allow me to type in the address and shoot that report off. I have to have email open to do that. And again, we can help you, make sure the settings are correct and stuff like that, and work with your IT if you want us to, and make sure it's all working. But you don't have to export it out to your desktop, come over there, change, open Outlook, start a new mail, attach, find where you left it. Was it this desktop or did I put it in documents? I forget. You can do it straight to email from within Sage. Notes is a relatively new feature in Sage 300. You can track notes for customers, vendors, and items here. So if we take a look at my vendors, right, we saw that pop open before. Let's go ahead and close this for a second and we'll reopen it and pull up a particular vendor. And I can see for vendor 1200 Chloride Systems, there's a note. This is our primary vendor for new product. I can edit the note. I can delete a note if I have rights to do so. I can make sure that it can't be dismissed. I can have it remind you or be active on certain dates. So again, a little piece of information, but can be helpful to give your users relevant information at the right time as they're doing data entry. Pop up about a particular item or a customer, make sure you sell this customer this item or give this customer this terms or whatever you want to be over there whenever you use that. So vendors, customers, and items can have notes created for them. Now we're going to get into some new features. These have come out in the last year or two. The first is really global search. So when you want to look for information in Sage 300, there is now a global search where I can search through all kinds of different transactions, all the different modules looking for certain things. But you want to kind of be careful when you're searching, right? And use special formatting like quotations or the plus sign. And you can do that to help and refine the default behavior in the search. So let's go take a look at that. Global search, because it's global and not specific to any module, is up here on the toolbar actually. And I can click on global search. And maybe I'm looking for 1200. And is that customer 1200 or is that vendor 1200? I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and look for 1200. And we'll go ahead and pull that up. There we go. And I'll maximize this. And I can see now it has found me batches, it has found me vendor details, it has found me customer information, 19 different pages where it found 1,200. Now I can tell it I want to limit this to only AP or only AP invoice entry or only order entry or something like that. So you can quick, narrow down the search, and make it a little bit faster. But that's a nice tool called Global Search up at the top to help you find information. Next is something called Payments Acceptance. I can't really show this too well because I can't set up a fake Stripe or PayPal account where people can just send me money. I've asked, but they won't let me. But you can send invoices out to customers with a Pay Now button like this using Stripe or PayPal if you have those existing accounts. And you can find that here under Common Services, Service Center, Payments Acceptance, and you can connect and start to use one of those two options. So again, give us a call. Let us know if you'd like to do that. We can help you go through that process and send invoices out with a Pay Now button for customers. Okay, and that brings us to the Acumen Tools section, where I want to review some of the import tools that we've built for you, because we've spent a lot of time helping clients with Sage 300 right over the last 30 years. We've got programmers on staff that have taken information back from our consultants, from you guys, right? That say, oh, I don't like to do this. This is hard. This is time consuming. And we've built a bunch of tools that can help you speed up that process. And we break them down into groups like import tools, automation tools to help with things like accruals, to help with things like journal entries. And then reporting tools, which can cross companies, multi-company transaction listing or multi-company aged payables. So just because we're limited on time, I'm going to go through a couple of the different journal tools or import tools and tell you how you might be able to use it. Give you an example of how you could take one tool and use it 4 different ways, and just give you some ideas. If you're interested in kind of looking at these or using these or subscribing to these tools, reach out to your account manager. They can give you information about it, give you pricing on it, even set up a free trial to let you go ahead and try it out. But let's go over and take a look. So I'm going to start with journal entry tool, and we'll talk about a payroll accrual, right? So all of the Acumen tools, and I see some of you on are using them already. I can recognize some of the clients and see that I know some of you have them, but they're all Excel based, right? They start with Excel. They are Excel. They are Excel files, which means I can save them with data in them. I can save different copies. Nick can have a different version than Stephen, because I might do payroll accruals and Stephen does fixed assets depreciation imports or something like that. So this is nothing more than a journal entry import, but I'm actually taking it a bit further here. So I said, okay, this tool can cross multiple companies. You can see I have the database IDs for Sample Company Inc. and Sample Company Limited. So if I have 20, 30, 50 different companies, I can do the same entries one time. It will log in and out of all those different entities and make the journal entry for me. But what I've done here is, because this is Excel, right? I created a separate tab over here where I said, okay, we need to do a payroll accrual, but for this particular month that I'm recording, we actually have 7 days that we need to accrue for. And you can see I've got formulas in where it just takes that amount and calculates it out for me. And then if I come over here, I can just copy things down and it's going to pull through everything for me. So I can get a balanced journal entry, and it's just looking at the information here with VLOOKUPs. So we help clients set this up all the time, where you just create the formulas that you need in Excel. And then you can come over to the kind of working tab, right, where you might want to calculate the accruals, calculate the lease amortization, calculate depreciation, whatever you want to do. It's going to update this first tab. You can say, do I want this to be auto reversing or not? Do I want this to auto post, or should it be sitting there as unposted so I can review it once it gets to Sage as well? We have finders. We have help, where you can launch help to tell what a specific field or column is looking for. And then I can import this back to Sage 300. You might also take this over to the bank section, right, where I need to do cash transactions, but I can't put those in GL. We all know that because they don't show up on the bank rec. So if I do bank entries, and I want that to auto post, or do I want it to be a single entry, I can put in the database, put the account, put the bank, and what's going to happen. So here I'm recording some car leases, and I've got reference information, whose car is it, which car is it, and how much I'm actually going to post, and I'm going to affect cash in this particular case. And then because we keep going module by module by module, we've moved from GL, bank, cash, AP, AR, right, over to purchasing. And we've created tools for those as well, where this one's going to go through and retrieve open POs, where I could then update the expected arrival date on the detail line and then update it back to Sage. So we do have tools that are on the kind of distribution side, right, where it pulls information in with the retrieve button for a vendor or all vendors, and then we'll push data back to Sage with the update buttons. So again, just a very, very, very high level example of what you can do with these tools. But there's now a whole suite of them, and reach out to your account managers, and they can certainly help you with more information about that. So with that, let's go ahead and open it up for questions. And please feel free to post any questions into the chat window, because all the users, just a reminder, are in listen only mode, and we'll certainly look at that chat and answer as many as we can. If there's something we can't answer, we will certainly get an answer back to you.
Hi, Nick. So we did have a couple of questions come in, so we can go ahead and get started. The first question that came in, it says, does Acumen offer one-on-one or team training?
Yes, we do. Absolutely. There are kind of both options. And depending on your needs, if it's just a quick question and you need a support rep to come in and show you something, we can do that. If you need to set up a 4-hour Sage intelligence class or full-on training on the whole Sage system, we can kind of cover from one extreme to the other. Just reach out to your account manager. That would be the best place, or am@acumenfl.com. And I'll put that up here so you have the phone number. If you don't know who your account manager is, if there's any questions, send it to am@acumenfl.com, and we will help you find that and make a training plan for you.
Thanks, Nick. Another question came in. It says, when I go to process flows, I get a message about Adobe Flash Player required, but you can't download it because it was retired. Is there anything I can do?
Yes. So what you want to do really is we need to make sure that your Sage is in the correct or updated version, because Sage did make that change to account for Flash no longer being available. So the older versions in Sage did use Flash, but the new ones do not.
Thank you. And then just on time, I think we'll take a few more. So one says, is it possible to hide columns in the AP invoice entry screen?
Yes, you can hide columns in any of the screens where you have the data entry grid. So if we come to AP invoice entry screen and we say, okay, we're going to start a new batch here. We select a vendor that's not on hold, so we don't get the message. I can drag them to hide them, or I can right click and hide them. If I make a mistake and I hide GL account, which is pretty important when you're coding an AP invoice, I can always right click and select restore that one field or restore defaults. That takes me exactly back to the beginning and I've lost nothing. You know, I can go right back to the start.
Perfect. So it looks like just with time, we'll take one more question. So it says saving report as default via settings. Not all will auto update date next time it opens. It says would be great if date was excluded from the default option.
Yes, I do agree. If you save a report like we did, and it does mean it saves the date as well. But if I have to change just one thing rather than three, I still think it can be faster. But you're right, it does save the date as well. And I wish date could be excluded. I agree.
So I think with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. So thank you all for joining us today. If you have any additional questions or like a recording to the webinar, then please reach out to your assigned account manager, or you can email us at am@acumenfl.com. Be sure to also subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to stay up to date on the latest Sage information. And with that, I believe that's all we have. So hope you all have a great rest of the week, and we hope to see you on our next webinar Wednesday.